Welcome to the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. You can catch us Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on FS1. Here's what this podcast is all about. It's an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the day's show, and there is a lot to get into in today's podcast. Skip and Shannon react to how the Spurs will respond with Tony Parker missing his first playoff game in his career. Skip calls the marketing technique behind LaVar and Lonzo's new Big Baller shoes creative, and it might replace the Jordan Futures on set. But Shannon says there is only one guy that can charge $500 for a sneaker, and his logo is on his shoe. Plus, Hall of Famer Chris Carter says the front office in Seattle told Richard Sherman to check yourself before you wreck yourself, but that will help Sherman show maturity this year. Rob Parker is here to tell us the Cavs will lose a game before the finals, but LeBron probably has a toothache from all the cupcakes in the Eastern Conference. Finally, former Yankee and FS1 baseball analyst Nick Swisher comes to the desk to preview the weekend series between the Yankees and Cubs in Wrigley. No tie today, Shannon?
So usually on this show, you are playing for a tie at best, and now you're playing for no tie because you've come over to my side,
Yeah, what's going
right?
on here?
I'm dressed like I got off work and I'm headed to happy hour. I'm getting an early start on Cinco de Mayo.
I mean, that doesn't look like happy hour gear to me.
Skip and I both are headed to happy hour.
That's false.
Can't beat him, join him? Is that what it is?
Yeah, you know, he always thinks I'm trying to, be like him anyway.
Well, listen, I never wear a tie, so I've already been on board.
Yes.
Now we're all on the same page now.
Yeah, I mean, Skip,
It's okay.
I mean, you don't like it? I mean, you want me to go play?
I think it looks sharp. I think it looks great. It looks better than you've ever looked. It's the best you've ever looked.
See, I know you just can't. You just gotta get that one in before we get started.
The Cavs are on the road tonight for Game 3 against the Raptors. Cleveland is the perfect 6-0 in the playoffs. LeBron is averaging 34 points per game so far. We're joined by Rob Parker. Rob, will the Cavs lose a game before the finals?
Yeah, they'll lose a game. I think last year was the same thing. People thought they were going to just, roll in. It's just impossible. There'll be one night where one of the teams will make some shots, and you know what I mean? And LeBron and them will probably take a night off or just feel bored or, because it's I
So
know.
it's come to this. They have to be bored.
But that's how it is, Skip. I don't see anybody in the way. LeBron should have a toothache for all the cupcakes that he's eaten over the last 8 or 9
Don't do that, Rob. Rob, don't do that. Don't do that, Rob.
That's not to say I'm not blaming LeBron. He can only play who's in front of him.
Right.
But you got to admit, Shannon, that when you look back on LeBron's era, you're going to say there was nobody there. There was no point of resistance in the East. When you try to make a case for Paul George and those guys up in Toronto and Lowry and the Celtics.
Bulls.
I mean, it's just nobody, and that's not his fault, but I'm just saying his legacy is going to be marred by this, that he didn't have. You want to have a battle, and you know what? You could look at Michael Jordan and say this. He had to struggle with the Pistons before he finally got over the hump.
But what happened?
Pistons Isaiah and them had to struggle against the Celtics, Skip, before they finally got over the hump. Every team should have to do that. LeBron hasn't had to struggle.
Hold on. You say Jordan had to struggle against the Pistons. What happened when he finally beat the Pistons? They were old. You talk about the Pistons.
They weren't old.
Don't do that, Rob. Rob, you were in Detroit. You were in Detroit. When the bad boy Pistons were in their prime, what did they do to Jordan? When the big three Celtics were in their prime, what did they do to everybody in the East, Rob Parker? Tell the truth now.
Yeah, but the difference was at the way that they played the game then. You know this. Was Michael Jordan guarded the same way, Skip, as they'd guard LeBron James?
They changed.
Is it the same game?
There was a book written about it called The Jordan
Thank
Rules,
you.
about the Pistons' rules for guarding Michael Jordan.
You know what, Skip? You give me a lot of credit, and we were me and Skip was having a conversation, and I'm not going to get into the conversation we was having it. He says, but Shannon, I'm really impressed with your historical knowledge of the NBA.
I am.
He says,
True statement.
football, you know it.
Right.
You played it, you know it back and forth. He says, but basketball. And I was like, well, hold on. You know what? I was a young man. I was, really into basketball. Because I remember, 79, the great game between, but I also, so I go back a ways.
I've been covering the league since 1987. I want to let you know that, too.
Okay.
Okay.
Magic Johnson was great. Great player, wasn't he, right?
Yep.
Played in the West, right, Skip?
Yes.
In 82, when they went to the finals, they was 8-0 in the playoffs before they got to the finals. 8-0. They didn't lose a game. So if the zero's in the last column, that means what? You didn't lose nothing. Okay, in 83, they lost 3 games. Playing 3 rounds, they lost 3 games going to the finals. In 85, they went 11-2 before they got to the Celtics in the finals. 3 rounds, lost 2 games. Dang. 87, let me tell you about 87. They played the Celtics again. They were 11-1 before they got to the finals. All these big
How about 88?
They struggled that year.
Oh! He wasn't going to mention that
was
one, Skip.
there.
Hold up.
Wait, the Dallas Mavericks, the baby Dallas Mavericks took them to 7 games at the Forum.
Hold on. In 89, before they got swept by the Pistons, they were 11-0. And in 91, when Magic was old and past his prime, and he was hurt, they lost 3 games before they lost to the Bulls. So for all y'all keep talking about LeBron, and you keep talking about the Mavericks, how many Hall of Famers was on that Mavericks team?
They were loaded they went about 8 deep with really good players.
How about
time.
Roy Tarpley would have been if he didn't have
how about this, Skip?
Derek Harper, Rolando Blackman. I could go on and on and on.
You can go on and on. But they were playing the Clippers. The Clippers had not yet arrived in L.A.
They were in San Diego?
Oh, yeah. And the Kings hadn't arrived in Sacramento. They were in Kansas City. Now tell the rest of my story, Skip.
Okay, now I'm going to tell the LeBron James story because he has had nothing but cakewalks to 6 straight finals in the Eastern Conference, and he is so blessed to not have had to play in the West at a time when it's much tougher than the East. So we go back to the greatest player ever, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and went through all of his, and I won't bore you with this, I'll just sum it up for you. In the Eastern Conference alone, on the way to the finals, he had to face 39 Hall of Famers over 20 series covering 13 years. That's 39 Hall of Famers, and we know about the first 5 Hall of Famers because you shortchanged those Celtics because it was Bird, McHale, Parrish. Dennis Johnson's in the Hall of Fame, and Bill Walton is in the Hall of Fame, and he was the 6th man of the year.
And what you call him? They also had Tiny Archibald on that team, who's also in the Hall of Fame, the 81 team. But go ahead, Skip, go ahead.
And back to the Pistons here. There weren't just a couple of Hall of Famers. There are 5 Hall of Famers on that team, starting with Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, and Adrian Dantley was on the first team.
Yes.
So that's 5 Hall of Famers.
Bill Laimbeer's in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
I didn't
in the
know
Hall
that.
of Fame. Yeah. I think so.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not sure, Skip. That one I'm not sure.
Okay, but
okay,
the
4,
other guys.
at least 4.
All right, so you have to face them year after year. Then Dantley got traded to the Mavericks for Mark Aguirre, so you added Mark, who is really a great player, not a Hall of Famer, but a very good player. And then along the way, you have to deal with Shaq and Barkley and Ewing several times, and Alonzo Mourning. And then at the end, 98, you got Reggie Miller and Chris Mullin in that Indiana team that was really a tough basketball team, and that thing went 7 games.
But Skip, you keep talking about these Hall of Famers, but when they had those Hall of Famers in Boston, what did Michael Jordan do? When they had those Hall of Famers in Detroit, and they did, hold on.
No, I'm not buying your funny math or your new math, because what you're not saying is you're saying Michael couldn't get through them, but LeBron's not even facing anybody. That's the difference. It's like this LeBron, who? Paul George, who?
So Paul,
name me the toughest opponent he's had to face in the East. Who?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Paul Jordan, when his career is over, will be a Hall of Famer?
No.
Okay.
And I'll ask you this. LeBron went and joined up with 2 of the best players in the East in order to get to where he was. And even then, he only won 2 out of 4 championships. Even then.
The only difference between then and now is that the players didn't have the option of free agency to move around. The players are taking it upon themselves to put teams together. Just because a general manager or the owner put the team together, that doesn't make it any. Think about it. You have James Worthy, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you have Magic Johnson, you have Jamal Wilkes, you have Bob McAdoo, all within a 3-year time frame. So how many times do you expect them to win the championship, Rob? Talk about the Supersonics. How many Supersonics?
No. But you're manipulating. What LeBron did was manipulate. He looked at the East. He looked at where he was. He realized if I put this together, he's got a clear path. It's a manipulation that's totally different from putting together a team as a general manager, taking a piece. Bob McAdoo was with the Buffalo Braves, and then you know what I mean, and all kinds of stuff. And yes, did they get him? He was a good player.
And they drafted Larry Bird before his senior year, and they got him. Okay. And they made the trade for Robert Parrish.
And they got lucky on some other stuff. I get that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying LeBron manipulated it to the East, and hasn't faced nearly as many top 50 players when you go through the list, and that's all. It doesn't mean that he's not a great player.
It doesn't mean
he's had an easier route. That's it. You have to admit that.
Rob,
Shannon, I want you to admit it.
No,
I want you to admit it.
It does not mean that there won't be top 50 players when they do a new calculation.
Give me a name.
Well, tell me these great.
Give me a name. Give me
DeMar
one name.
DeRozan.
Is that it? Give me a name.
Give me the great players.
Shannon, give me one name. Give me one name in the East.
Give me the great players in the Supersonics.
Give me one.
In the Kansas City Royals. Give me a great name.
Give me one.
On the San Diego Clippers. Give me one.
But you can't give me a name. Who's coming? Who's the Hall of Famer? Carmelo.
Carmelo ain't going to the Hall of Fame.
And what did Carmelo do in his postseason career?
Okay, you said, but Tracy McGrady's going to the Hall of Fame. What did he do?
Tracy McGrady, are you sure he should be going to the Hall of Fame?
It doesn't matter if he should or shouldn't.
No, but that's my
D. Wade is in the Hall of Fame.
Skip. Tracy McGrady's a Hall of Famer.
Just as a note, Shannon, in the 91 playoffs when Jordan beat the Pistons, Isaiah Thomas was 29 and Joe Dumars was 27.
They weren't old. He said they were all old and washed up.
29, 27.
Isaiah Thomas was in 11th year.
29 years old. He wasn't old.
Old.
Joe Dumars, what did you say, 28?
Old.
27.
When the big three.
By the way, the Raptors have announced this morning that Kyle Lowry is a game-time decision. So we'll see.
There we go again.
Can we get a refund on those games?
Yeah, we did it with Kyle Lowry.
No mercy. We want to welcome Jay Cutler to the Fox family. He officially joined us today as a Fox NFL analyst. So welcome, Jay.
Wow, Jay Cutler is now a member of the Fox family.
Yep.
That means, Shannon Sharpe, that we have two Vanderbilt men under the same roof here, which means the IQ of Fox Sports just went through the roof.
It's the SSU guy that raises it.
Oh, is it really? Oh, I hadn't noticed that.
You know what, Jay, all the bad things I ever said about you, I take back.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I take back, Skip. I take back. I take them back.
Well, now you don't have to worry about him anymore. He's just up in the booth.
Doing his thing?
Yeah.
I hope he
analyzing.
I hope he does a great job.
Yes, well, welcome, Jay. We're happy to have you. Next up, LaVar Ball is at it again. LaVar and Lonzo's Big Baller brand revealed their new shoe yesterday, the Zo 2. The shoe cost $495. This comes a week after Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas reportedly said no to licensing Big Baller brand. Shaquille O'Neal tweeted, "Hey, LaVar Ball, real big baller brands don't overcharge kids for shoes." LaVar tweeted, "Big ballers lose. If you can't afford the Zo 2s, you're not a big baller." Warriors assistant coach Mike Brown was asked about the shoes last night. Let's take a listen.
Would you buy your kids a pair of shoes for $500 from an unproven NBA player out the box? No.
Shannon, was it a mistake by LaVar to charge this much?
Yeah, I think it is. Now, I don't have a problem with him, coming out with his own brand and trying to market it and trying to make money. You live in a capitalistic society and you come up with innovations and people sell things all the time. But Skip, the word I'm going to use in retailing, they always say, is price point. His price point is way, way off. You can't charge as an upstart more than what established shoe companies are charging. The Jordan, the LeBron, the Kyrie, the Steph Currys, the KD. That's 2-3 times what established NBA players with the backing of established NBA brands. I don't understand what he was trying to go for. And then to say, well, if you can't afford these shoes, you're not a baller. Can you imagine if Mercedes says, well, hey, if you can't afford this car, you ain't a baller. Well, I think everybody gonna say, well, I'm a baller blocker because I'm not finna pay $500 for these orthopedics. Skip, he got to bring the price down. If you want to do $100, and maybe they don't sell in America like this, but Stephon Marbury has a shoe, and it's not a major backing, but it does very well overseas, and so maybe that's the case. I just think he rubbed a lot of the big brands the wrong way. I want $1 billion. You don't have to give it to me all at once. You can give it to me $100 million over 10 years. Skip, that was the wrong way to go about it. Say, yes, I would love to work with the big brand, the name brand sneaker companies, and hopefully we can come to something that my son, myself, and the shoe, because I have a prototype of my own. But to go about it this way, I think he's going to have a problem moving the shoe.
Okay, I hear you. you're probably right. This could be epic fail on the part of LaVar Ball. But once again, my step back perspective on this is somehow LaVar Ball continues to make himself the biggest story in sports. He's risen above NBA playoff stories. This has become, over the last 24 hours, the biggest story in sports.
It's trending.
Seriously, 2 months ago, just 2 months ago, I didn't know who LaVar Ball was. I knew who Lonzo was, but I didn't know about his dad.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
And all of a sudden, this man now has the cachet and the you-know-what to...
Chutzpah.
Yeah, the chutzpah. But he's got the cachet to dare to launch his own sneaker line after thumbing his nose at Nike and Under Armour. You don't want to work with me? And Adidas, all of them. Yep. He said, heck with you, heck with you, heck with you, watch this. And he has launched his own line, and immediately, within 24 hours, he has generated publicity that Nike and Under Armour and Adidas would be in awe of generating in 24 hours, right?
Yes.
Because everybody's talking about this one shoe that's 6 months away from hitting the market.
Right.
That's astonishing to me. And it's credit to LaVar for somehow pulling this off, because now every talk show in America is having a ball with LaVar Ball, right? That's all anybody's talking about. And we're going to bring Rob Parker on in a little while. We're going to do it again, talk about it, and go deeper into it. But again, my step back here is I'm trying to figure out how he's doing this, because this is an incredibly creative marketing scheme that he's trying to pull off, because he's saying, okay, it's going to cost you $500 to merely reserve some of the original sneakers that are going to hit the market in 6 more months.
Right.
And by the way, if you send me your $500, no refunds, no money back. So you have, he will have your $500. And let's just do the math. I don't know what, I don't know, this is out of my league.
If he
so
sells 1,000
Okay,
of them.
that's the number I wrote down. What if he sells 1,000 in the next week or so? Because people are foolish enough, they like the mystique of this. Wow, I want to be part of this. Like it's starting to have some cool factor to it. And by the way, the shoes look pretty good to me. I don't know. What do I know? I think they look pretty good. You think not?
I mean,
I like the black and gold.
care.
You know why I like black and gold? Vanderbilt colors. Way to go. Maybe they're Vanderbilt.
now it's reported now. Ocho Cinco said he bought a pair.
Did he?
Michael Bennett.
Oh, they said they did.
Yes. Because I
Okay,
followed
well,
both
that'll
of them.
help.
They say they purchased them.
Okay, but think about this. So if 1,000 people buy these shoes in the next week or so,
$500K.
that would give him $500,000 in seed money to actually produce the shoes, to make the shoes.
Right.
So then he makes X number originally.
Right.
To satisfy the 1,000.
Right.
And then you're off to the races.
Right.
And maybe the publicity starts to feed off itself and generate more interest. I don't know.
I don't think he's crazy though, Skip, because if you remember, Phil Knight, when he started Nike, was selling shoes out the trunk of his car.
Okay.
At least he got a head start. He's on the internet. He's already got people talking about it. So basically, for Nike to get to where it was like word of mouth. This guy's selling waffle shoes out of the back of the trunk of his car, blah, blah, blah. But Skip, here's the thing. Now, I know someone. I have 2 stylists. You know, I'll be styling and profiling. Shelly and Arturo. Arturo used to be the executive guy that when you go to the showrooms at Ralph Lauren, he designed the showrooms. How you saw the mannequins dress, he did all that. So, but he wanted to do his own thing as far as clothing. Talked to Mr. Lauren about it, and Mr. Lauren said, okay, gave him his blessing. He went out on his own. Now, he has the same fabrics that Mr. Lauren has and Brioni and Tom Ford, but he can't charge those prices because he's just getting into the business and he doesn't have those names. So his price point has to be different than theirs. And I think that's the problem that LaVar doesn't understand. You can't charge 3 times. Now, there's only one guy that can charge $400 or $500 for a sneaker, and his logo is on the sneaker. That's Jumpman. That's Michael Jordan. You're not Michael Jordan. So for you to think that your price point can be 2 to 3 times what the average, a known commodity, everybody knows what Nike is. Everybody knows the athletes, especially basketball players, that wear Nike. They know Adidas. They know UA. But for you to come out here and to look at the logo, it just looks like a. Now, I would like to think, could he have moved these if he had a relationship, if he had handled the situation better? Imagine if there was a swoosh on that shoe, or those three lines, or the UA. I guarantee you people buy them because they look a little bit like the Steph Curry three. That while you bull jiving, people like brands. And right now, what is his brand?
He's his own brand. These are LaVar shoes more than they're Lonzo shoes, right? Isn't that what we're doing here?
Well, he's made it about LaVar.
He has.
Because that's what we're talking about. Oh, right. The LaVar ball, the Lonzo too. Hold on. What you mean LaVar and Lonzo? No, Lonzo is the basketball player. He's wearing the shoe. LaVar ain't going to be wearing no shoe.
No, I got it. But we don't even know where Lonzo's going to be playing. So you can't even time to the Lakers. He's going to be the next big Laker. I don't know where he could be in Phoenix. I don't know where he could be.
I just wish he would have handled the situation a lot better, had a better working relationship, because I believe Nike would have been willing, or one of these shoe companies, Skip, would have been willing to work with him. Mm-hmm. But when you tell them, there's only one guy making $100 million a year on shoes, and you know who that is, Skip. That's Jumpman.
I got it.
But he's been there since '84.
Okay, but what if he's still one step ahead of us? And what if he gets 1,000 people to pony up $500 and he takes that to fund the project?
Right.
And then a month into the project, he drops the price to $200 or whatever and makes it more marketable.
Well, I'm gonna be upset.
Masses. Because
you charge me $500 and that now you can get them for $200?
No refunds.
No refunds. So
everybody gives you a refund.
Think you're saying that you have been talked into paying the $500 because you're intrigued.
No, I'm not that intrigued.
Okay, but I've seen these things, and I'm not saying you're
wrong.
I mean,
if I was a security guard at some place and I want to be comfortable all day, I'm gonna have me on some black shoes or something like.
$500 black shoes?
Nah. If I work in security, I don't need no $500.
Okay, but you've seen what I've seen in the past. Every once in a while, something catches fire.
Yes.
On the internet or just out in public.
He did.
Word of mouth, okay? And somehow it becomes a status symbol at an absurdly high price to own this pair of sneakers, whatever it might be. Recently, I did a sneaker shopping segment for Complex at Flight Club here in L.A., and they're on consignment, so they're used, barely used shoes.
Did you get the Undefeated?
I did not, but I saw behind locked glass, I saw some Yeezys.
Yeah.
And I think it was the Red Octobers. And you got them?
I got them.
You got them? Well, these were $5,000.
Yeah.
Well, it's status symbol. It just became a thing. You can't really, again, it's Yeezy, so it's a big deal. But again, it worked. They can sell them, and I don't know how much you paid for yours, but did you pay $5,000?
No. I traded AFC Championship game tickets for the sneakers. I told you my guy in Boston.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was the deal.
But I got a lot of stuff, Skip. I got all three of the latest, the ones. I got the Red Octobers. I got the black ones. I got the platinum and green.
Your collection is not complete without the big baller brands, though, too.
No, I don't think that's gonna make my collection. I got the Pit Crews. I got the Mirror Roads. I got the Lightnings.
This is
the
all anybody is talking about. The ZO2s.
You better get them.
I tell you what. They might be talking about it when they start buying them. That's when me and you gonna have another conversation about this. Then I might get on board. We might need to get on the bottom floor. They laughed at the people at Apple. They laughed at Facebook. And look at Mark Zuckerberg. They got about 2 billion Facebook
Bottom
followers.
line, how much of these proceeds does Lonzo get or LaVar get to keep? 100%.
Yes.
They're doing it on their own, right? They don't have to. Nike might have gotten 75% of the proceeds.
You have to respect that he's doing it on his own.
Right.
I mean, whether he's marketing these to the masses, I don't know. I'm the first to say I am obviously not a big baller because I am not spending $500 on sneakers, but.
I mean, I spent,
people will do it.
Skip, you spent big money. I spent big money on dress shoes. I mean, look.
You spend big money on shoes, but established shoes. Just for some perspective, and these numbers are adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
The shoe debut list, the Air Jordan 1s in 1985, adjusted inflation, $145. Kobe's original shoe, $151. LeBron, $145. So you're talking about somebody who hasn't been drafted yet, charging $495 for their.
I got a couple of. I had their Jordan
with under established brands.
And my mom, I got them from my senior for Christmas in 1984. My mom waited in line for like 3 hours. She said, "Boy, you better love these shoes here." But Skip, That was really the beginning of the shoe craze when the Jordans came out. But they were $100.
Yeah.
And Jordan could fly because so people got those shoes and they said, well, man, maybe I can jump like Jordan.
Well, they're still getting those shoes.
And that's the thing.
You know what? I'm thinking about plunging. I think I might plunk down 500.
You
I just
yourself
might
into
do
it?
it.
You're going to go away from the
The more
Jordan.
you talk, the more I'm
Hold on.
intrigued.
You're going to go away from the Jordan futures and where the Lonzo's too.
You know what? I like Lonzo as a player. I'm a fan. I told you that through the college years.
No mercy. Spurs and the Rockets play Game 3 tonight. The Rockets won Game 1 by 27. The Spurs won Game 2 by 25. And yesterday, the Spurs confirmed that Tony Parker will be out for the rest of the playoffs with a ruptured left quadriceps tendon. Skip, how much will the Spurs miss Tony Parker?
By the way, we talked about this yesterday, and we didn't know exactly what the injury was. Is it not just the weirdest,
It is.
ill-fated injury?
Right.
Your quad tears? You've thrown your body down the lane a million times, crashed under the basket, right?
How many times have you done that 2-foot floater? 1,000, 10,000.
Thousands and thousands of times, and for reasons you can't explain. It's like an Achilles tear.
Yep.
It just goes.
Yep.
And could you have prevented it? What could you have done? Could you have strengthened your core? Or what? No, it just happened. It's fate. It's the injury gods said, no, you're done for
Right.
this year, Tony Parker, and
Right.
he may have to consider being done for good.
Right.
I don't know. Back to your question. They are dearly going to miss Tony Parker for his presence, not so much his production. We know he's been beat up all year. He's had like 4 other minor injuries he's fought through this
Correct.
year. And so he's been there and he's not been there, and he'll hit and he'll miss. So not production, presence. And I thought only one Rocket spoke the truth, and it was hard truth. But Trevor Ariza, I respected this. I don't know if the Spurs are going to love this, but you can't really quibble with it, because Trevor Ariza said of Tony Parker, what he brings to their team, I don't know how you replace that. Not saying they don't have good enough players to step in, but what he brought to that team, I think it's unmatched, said Trevor Ariza. Unmatched. You know why it's unmatched? Remember LeBron's first finals?
Yes.
Spurs swept. MVP of that finals was?
Tony Parker.
Who was about to get married on 8/8/8 of 08. Remember that? Ill-fated. But anyway, that was his big moment. So he's the MVP. And he made 6 All-Star teams, and he won 4 rings. He made All-NBA 4 times. It's aura. It's Hall of Fameness. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And this is another stat that shocked me when I heard it last night. Tony Parker has never missed a playoff game in his career. I would have thought he's missed 12, because it always seems like he's got some nagging something going on. But that means he's played over 16 seasons, 221 playoff games. That's by far, or it's easily the most of any any active player. And 221 is 16 more than second place, LeBron James, tied with Manu Ginobili.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay, but LeBron James, it feels like he's played 1,000 playoff games, because he's been to the finals 6 straight years, and he's on the way towards 7. It just seems like that would add up.
Right.
But Tony Parker is still 16 above LeBron. And by the way, LeBron is way ahead of Dwayne Wade, who's next on the list at 172. That's 33 fewer than LeBron and Manu. So I'm giving you the aura perspective of this. So, look, they lost Tim Duncan, who was the leader of the franchise,
Right.
and Tony stepped into that void and became the new leader, the current leader of the franchise, along with Manu, but it's mostly Tony, because Manu comes off the bench. Tony starts. So what did Tony bring? Just poise and cool under fire. Key game, big shot making. We saw it the other night.
Right.
Scored 18. And just the presence of, I've been here and done all this before. There's no reason to get too excited or too down about getting blown out in game 1. So here's what my conclusion is. This is what just tears me up. What have I told you all season long since Undisputed launched back on September 6th? I've been waiting, hoping for Spurs versus Cavaliers in the finals, because I believe the Spurs are a bad match for your Cavaliers. My issue was, could they get through Houston and then figure out a way to navigate through Golden State, which you would say no way. And I would say way with Tony Parker. But without Tony Parker, it's going to be hard enough to get through Houston. I think they can, because I think they can win one of these two games just over the weekend in Houston and get it back to San Antonio and eventually win it in 7 games without Tony Parker. Do I like their chances? I do not without Tony Parker. So my point is, the injury gods have blessed LeBron James once again. Well, they have, because
LeBron's in the East. He's not even thinking about the Spurs.
I know, but this would have been the matchup. LeBron can beat Golden State. They've always had it's rock, paper, scissors. And in this case, scissors cut through paper, and somehow LeBron and company, they just get physical with Golden State and take them out of what they do.
You know that Kyrie Irving, you know what he does to Tony Parker. You remember that night, that fateful night, when he hit him up for 58? Mm-hmm. You remember that, right?
I remember regular season.
Yeah, I'm saying you remember that, right? Okay.
Yeah, you remember last time the Spurs and LeBron played in the finals? Do you remember what happened?
We're not
he
talking
lost by a record margin.
Okay.
And by the way, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to let you go ahead. You want to gloat about your team.
This is the only reason I'm hanging on for dear life with a little bit of hope here. The greatest game in Spurs history, to my eye, the most amazing upset victory in the history of the San Antonio Spurs dynasty, happened in 2014, 3 years ago, one fateful Saturday night at Oklahoma City in Game 6, ahead of that finals, Heat versus Spurs. Mm-hmm. I didn't think they had any chance in that game. They started Matt Bonner. He was in the starting lineup that night at Oklahoma City. Tony Parker had a bad ankle and was hobbled and basically useless. He did try to make it through 18 minutes of that game, but they played Corey Joseph and Patty Mills and Matt Bonner, and they stole it. Ginobili hit a huge 3 at the end of regulation to force overtime, and then Durant and Westbrook just couldn't find themselves in overtime, and the Spurs went to the finals, and it was a bad break for LeBron James because that was over fast. That was over in 5 games. So I'm just saying, they managed to pull that game off without much from Tony Parker, so maybe they could pull this off.
That was a long time ago. I'll agree with you this. His presence, because of all the reasons you mentioned, he is a 4-time champion. He is a former finals MVP. He's been an all-star, an all-NBA player. We know what he's been on the international circuit, playing for his team of France. But, Skip, the production, you never knew what you was going to get. You might get 27. But you might get 0 like in Game 3.
Yep. No, you're right. I don't refute that. You're right.
And so for me, Skip, it doesn't change their title outlook because they weren't winning the title with Tony Parker. Can they get through this series? Absolutely. Because in Pop's system, it's about the system more so than the players. That's why you see the continuity. Because if you really look at this team, Kawhi is the only guy that really can go get a shot. Everything else is pick and roll. Everything else is move the ball and hit the open guy. Yep. That's what they are. Kawhi is the only guy that can take the ball and says, okay, I'm getting to the basket. Okay, I'm going to back you down. I'm going to turn around from 15. He's the only guy that can do that.
I would agree.
Everybody else is dependent on somebody being able to put them in the best position so they can do what they do, is score the basketball. So this doesn't change it for me. Can they beat the Rockets? Absolutely. If Kawhi keeps outscoring James Harden 34-13 and they can't make any more threes from their role players, yeah, the Spurs are going to win. But the Spurs are not beating Golden State. They're not. You know that. I know that. Because here's the thing. What is the likelihood that you can get 3 of the big 4 to have off nights? Because this is what we know. You can take Steph and KD out of the ball game. You still got to deal with Clay and Draymond. Or you can take, so either way you look at it, and now you got Kevin Durant, efficient as ever, 25-11. Now you get Steph, he's shooting them threes, and he said, come on, give it to me, crowd. Crowd, I need it. I need to feel this power from your crowd. He's shimmying, he's doing, he's shooting the threes now, Skip, and he's leaving. He ain't even seeing it going in.
Speaking of injury breaks, Golden State starts getting injury breaks because they missed Yusuf Nurkic in round 1. Yeah. He would have changed that series. It would have been a rough ride for Golden State to get through Portland in round 1. And now, last night, George Hill couldn't go with a bad toe, and he is the leader and the point guard for Utah. I'm not saying Utah could win, but Utah played pretty well in Game 1 and hung in last night and made it fairly close late.
They got to 6, though, but Skip, that's the thing. You get outscored 35-15. You get outscored 38-20. Okay, the Warriors, they come down and they bull jive around and they turn the ball over 6 straight times, and you get within 5. And the next thing you know, in 3 possessions, they're already up. They're already up again, 13-15. The Jazz just does not have the weaponry to hang with this team, Skip. They can't. The only advantage they have is Gobert. Gobert would need to score 30 and 25 in order for them to have a chance, because the Warriors have the advantage at every other position other than center. But Gobert is not an offensive guy. So
what if this were healthy Clippers right now? Remember, the Clippers came together at the end of the year, won 7 in a row. Once they got Blake and CP3 healthy, and then what happened right like clockwork? Blake Griffin turned right back into Tony Romo. He just looks around and gets hurt. You know, it's like...
Skip, you'll remember this. You know who the Clippers remind you of? Detroit Lions. They would be terrible the whole year, and then they win the last 8 games, barely miss the playoff. Boy, wait the next year. Boy, they're going to get this thing
but I'm just saying, on star power alone, up against Golden State, they would scare Golden State a lot more than Utah would.
Did you see that 128 to 65, 75 victory that Golden State hung on?
Okay. All right, well, then I'll go back to opening night. Do you remember what happened on opening night in Oakland at Golden State? Do you remember it? My Spurs won by 29 points. What happened? Maybe that's going to happen.
They're going to beat the brakes off of your Spurs if they advance.
29 at Oakland? Boy, that's pretty good, I would say.
The brakes.
Okay.
Bam.
No mercy.
Cubs are rolling.
Cubs win the World Series.
The Yankees win was perfect. A Yankees sweep.
How about those Yankees?
This is impressive, Yankees.
Rizzo to right.
Home run for Judge.
Here's a shot by Bryant.
Back, track, wall. He's done it again.
Tomorrow night on Fox, it's Game 2 of the huge 3-game series between the Cubs and Yankees at Wrigley. FS1 baseball analyst Nick Swisher joins us.
Oh, that sounds good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. It's an honor to be here.
Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you.
How important is this series to the Yankees?
I think this is awesome. I wouldn't even necessarily just for the Yankees in general. I just think in baseball. I mean, it's the 3rd time since 1938 the Yankees have been to Wrigley. I was able to be part of the 2nd time in 2010. And if you haven't been there in person to feel the electricity and energy that stadium has, both teams are in first place right now. Both athletic teams, young athletic teams, teams that are set to go for the long run. And I feel like for myself, just as a fan now, to be able to watch this series take place, home run hitters galore, it's going to be a blast to watch.
So young Mr. Aaron Judge has exploded onto the baseball scene.
Yes, sir.
330s hitting, leads the majors, 13 home runs. And yet the other day, your former manager Joe Girardi was asked about him, and he went so far as to say that he's a little bit, said Joe, a little bit like Derek, as in Derek Jeter, with whom you played.
The captain.
Whoa. And I was wondering about you at that point, thinking, gee, did Joe go a little too far with that?
Yeah, I can see here on the media side of things how anytime you say Derek Jeter in a sentence, you better have somebody worthwhile. But you got to remember, it's hard to be Aaron Judge. This kid's 6'8", 280 pounds. I mean, he should be an NFL defensive end.
That's exactly right.
But you got to remember, as a prospect and a kid with talent, there's so many people coming up trying to tell you how to do things. Everybody from the guy who gives you your sandwich for lunch to a guy like Reggie Jackson. This kid has, the way he goes about his business, I was able to spend a couple months with him last year in AAA when I was trying to make my supposed comeback at the time. But this kid does things.
So you lived around him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like being around him day in and day out, it's nice to see a kid of this much talent go about his business the right way. You're never going to see him saying anything bad. You're never going to see this kid putting himself in a bad position. And you can appreciate that, man. So I understand what he's saying. He's like Derek Jeter. But by the way, I want him to be like Derek Jeter. We need another guy like that in baseball. We need another kid to step up. We've got our Trouts. We've got our Harpers. We got our Kershaws. We could use a guy in New York to move there to the forefront.
So describe his talents to those who might not yet get it.
Well, I just think
what do you
just
see?
physical stature alone, he's an absolute man. He's a man among boys. And, you know, we always hear Girardi talking about all we really try to do is just tell this kid to get the barrel to the ball, because obviously he's hitting 450-foot bombs. But then again, there's a lot of people in baseball hitting 450-foot bombs right now. I think the one thing that I loved about him the most is his work ethic. I feel like he loves being at the ballpark. I feel like there's something to be said for somebody that enjoys being at the ballpark every day. You've had teammates, you understand. It kind of brings that energy level up. It brings that camaraderie, passion up. And you got to remember, this team, the Yankees, a lot of these young guys came up through the minor leagues together winning. I feel like you don't just come onto the scene and win. I feel like you have to learn to win. And since the core four and the Alex Rodriguez of the world have left New York, I feel like winning has come back to the forefront.
Right.
And the Yankees are really pushing themselves in that right direction.
He's a big kid. I'll be a catcher next to him.
Yes.
No mercy.
Pete Carroll said yesterday that his relationship with Richard Sherman is, quote, as good as it's ever been. This comes after the Seahawks were openly talking to teams about possibly trading Sherman before the draft. Carroll addressed if Sherman would still be traded yesterday. Let's take a listen.
I don't think that anybody could offer us anything that would make it worthwhile at this point, because there's no draft involved and all that kind of stuff. The likelihood is like 0%, it seems like. As everybody on our team is available to somebody who wants to come get them, and if they want to trade for them, and we don't want to trade guys, we want to keep our guys, but we have to, in effort to try to always work to be better and help our team. We got to listen and all that. So we went through that process, very open conversation about that. There was no animosity at all. I know Sherman's really looking forward to getting back on the field, competing and battling. Really he's talked really clearly about his focus going forward. He wants to really recapture the intensity that he's always brought, and he feels like he can do that. We did exactly what we needed to do. We got him back playing for us.
We're joined by Chris Carter. Welcome, Chris.
CC.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Shannon, let me start with you. How will this work with Sherman back in Seattle?
Pete Carroll is being very disingenuous if he doesn't think this is going to hurt his relationship with Richard Sherman. 0%. Let's see. The height of free agency is come and gone. The draft is come and gone. And you think there's a 0% chance. There's a less than 0% chance that you're going to trade Richard Sherman. And for me, Skip, I have a very unique perspective on this, because Mike tried to shop me after the 95 season. Skip, I wasn't upset that he tried to trade me, but he was trying to trade me because he thought he could get somebody that could do better than I am.
He was trying to spare you because in '98 we would have whooped y'all so bad in the Super Bowl.
That is
but
true.
He was trying
Skip, don't do that, Skip.
Mentally, he was trying to get you, but you were going on to have a great career. Okay.
So it took me a while to get over, because then he tried to trade me again in '99, and then I leave in 2000, come back. So it took me a while to build back up that trust, because trust is the hardest thing to build, but it's the easiest thing to be broken, because words and deeds, they matter. Skip, you can't say publicly that I'm thinking about dating somebody else and then think your girlfriend ain't gonna be upset when you said, no, I was just playing, I'm good, we gonna patch this thing up. What you think she gonna say? Now, you might say that to her face behind closed doors, but you go publicly, yeah, we taking a break, I'm about to, going out here and see what's out here, and you gonna come back and say, oh, babe, I'm so happy to have you back. You think that's how it's gonna work?
After you said, I tried to date somebody else and it didn't work.
Yeah!
Right?
Skip. I'm talking to you. Joy, women, you know how that works. Your man.
Them.
We were on a break.
Them.
So he's being disingenuous if he doesn't think, but they sent a strong message to Richard Sherman. We want you to have your own opinions. We want them to be strong, but this open and blatant disrespect to your superiors will not be tolerated. You thinking you run things right here, talking about you're going to have somebody credentials pulled, will not be tolerated. Now, Richard Sherman's going to tone down this rhetoric. I guarantee you will not hear him say, I told the coach, you better not call that play again. Do not sacrifice our hard work. This was a message. And Pete Carroll is being disingenuous. Russell Wilson is not on the market. Now, everybody else might be tradable, but you ain't trade number 3.
That's true. That's a good point. The best point you made there at the end, because he's not being truthful, because Russell, you can't acquire him. And the way they've built their roster, Seattle, when they pay you, it's like, you should appreciate this because we made you.
Yes.
We went out and got you. Everyone else had these opportunities. We drafted you a lot of free agents, a lot of draft picks that they have turned in, and they're in the second contract with Snyder and with Pete. So the Russell part, I agree. The other part, I disagree because I believe that the brotherhood, that means the locker room, the Earl Thomases, that I believe these players want to play together. And their window is still open to win a Super Bowl. I think that it was a chance for Richard to hit the reset button in his pro career because he challenged Pete, and Pete and them stood their ground.
Right.
And I think this will help Richard going forward because it's just a nice taste of reality. Now, Richard, it's his responsibility. He's got to be mature and act like a man because there are going to be a couple times during the season this year where he's going to be on the red hot button, and he's going to have to make a decision. Do I act like I did last year? Do I go back? Or do I try to be a positive force in us trying to win as a team? And I believe that Richard, he's a smart guy. I believe one day he'll be sitting at a desk like this, analyzing sports. But I believe he wants to finish strong in Seattle. Now, however long that might be, but I believe what Pete and them and the message they sent, Snyder, as far as the front office, check yourself before you wreck yourself, I believe is going to help him hit that reset button. Because at this point in your career, you need something to challenge you. And he's still a very, very good player.
Yeah.
And the numbers indicate that, Skip.
So, this is interesting. I hadn't thought of it this way, but are you suggesting the trade scenario was bogus?
No. I believe it was real.
Okay.
Because we're gonna go out there and see, and also let's analyze our players. Richard's not responding in our program right now.
But you could suggest that they were just going to relight his fire for their sake. You know, like redraw the line, say we are in charge.
I think sometimes they'll take credit for it.
Okay.
But I think they was getting ready to try to trade Richard. Because there was some bad blood there.
It's a rare situation when the GM of the team, John Schneider, goes public and says we are open for business.
Was that at the combine? The first day of the combine when he got to the combine?
Before that.
It might have been before.
Yeah. But he's on the record, man, like on a Seattle radio show.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we're open for business. Come one, come all. We'll auction off Richard Sherman.
Might have been on Sirius.
And, of course, I'm over here beating the drum for my Cowboys. Trade 28 overall straight up for Richard Sherman. But then the word leaks out from the Seattle organization that they wanted more than the 28th overall. They wanted a Darrelle Revis deal. Remember in April 2013, he was traded from Jets to Tampa, and they got back a first-round pick, which was the 13th overall, which became Sheldon Richardson, and they also got a 2014 fourth-round pick thrown in for good measure, which didn't work out. But the point is, that's a lot more than the 28th overall that I wanted them to take. So maybe they just didn't get what they thought they would get for Richard Sherman. So now, you know, I got to defend Richard on this. I thought he had a really good year last year. He became a dirty player. You were very public about that. But I'm going to throw out that stat just for balance here because he allowed one catch for every 15 snaps in coverage last year, which was best in the National Football League. So I'm giving him.
And he was hurt all year.
And he didn't. So
for a large part of the season.
He was. So he wasn't in decline at age 28 going into 29.
He didn't play at the level that we were used to seeing him play at.
Correct. But this was an NFL first that you mentioned. In the heat of battle, during a game, he goes up to the coach, the head coach, and says, you will not throw it again down near the goal line. You will run the football on the next play. That's unheard of. So you have literally crossed a line that I think no one's ever crossed before during an NFL game. So now you have to make peace with this again. And look, Pete Carroll's a great motivator, but he's a con artist, and I mean it in a good way because he can con anybody. He can sweet talk anybody, so he's going to try to talk Richard back in, although I found it curious that he called him Sherman publicly. I don't know if that maybe I'm overstating what that was, but he just called him. If Denny Green had ever publicly called you Carter, would that sort of rub you the wrong
It would
way?
have been more Buddy Ryan because that's what Buddy Ryan either called you your last name or your number.
Okay. But
yes,
Pete
it would
Carroll
have been a little
usually doesn't
different.
do this. But my point is, I just think it's tick, tick, tick right now because Richard's a smart guy, and he knows what was going on. You knew what was going on, so it makes it a little more volatile. If something goes a little sideways, he's going to be quicker to lash back. That's just me because he is his own man.
But see, I'm not talking about his relationship with the players in that locker room. They're his brothers. But his relationship with Pete Carroll is different.
Right, absolutely. But I think that the bond that we have as players, like you and I will talk to each other and say, like, listen, man, we got to deal with Skip. You know, he's management, but we got to deal with it. Like, I need you. So I think that part is a stronger pull. But not me, but a friend told me, you know, once you start thinking about leaving and everything, though, like it's over with after that. Like it's eventually a matter of time before you eventually leave. So I hope they pull it back together, but it could be a bad break.
And think about this, because Richard came out after them when they was asking about him. He's like, you remember what happened last time we threw the ball when we got down there? We should have learned our lesson then.
Has that team, it hasn't gotten over that last
No.
And I'm not sure it ever will.
It won't with Marshawn. What if Marshawn gets Oakland in the Super Bowl? Ooh.
Well, definitely will be interesting to see if this was just a message sender to calm down with the yelling.
I guarantee you
on the sideline and such.
Hey,
he got it.
Joy says sometimes you need a break.
No mercy.
This is the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast, where we're delivering you an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the biggest topics of the day's show. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Like us on Facebook at Undisputed on FS1, follow on Twitter at Undisputed, and catch us at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday on FS1. You can find us on Channel 219 on DirecTV, 150 on Dish. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. That's it for us today. We're back next week. Enjoy Cinco de Mayo and your weekends. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Fox Sports 1 of 1.